Have you ever wondered what really happens to all the money you make every month? Or why does it seem so hard to save? If you've ever asked yourself these questions, then this will be the perfect video for you. Hello and welcome to the channel. Today, I'm going to be going over a few tips that can help you save money. So let's jump right in. First things first, we're going to have to understand why we spend money the way we do. I'm not sure if you knew this, but we actually spend money because of emotions. So because of that, we actually have to save money because of emotions too. So what happens is we make the decision emotionally and then we back it up with logic. So let's say you see something you like and you really want to buy it. And it could be shoes, car, clothes, or whatever. You emotionally make the decision to buy because when you think about it, it's not really the thing that we really want. And I know that may sound strange to hear, but it's actually true. It's not the thing that you want. It's about how that thing makes you feel. And that's what really matters. So that's what really makes that emotional connection to the things you say you want. And the challenge is that this process happens in a matter of seconds. We see it and then we immediately get emotionally connected to it. At least that's what we believe. The next step of the process is just as important though. You begin to back up that emotional decision with logic. And here's an example of what that sounds like. Well, the weather's changing and I do need a new jacket. And this one actually fits pretty well. And my other jacket doesn't have this nice warm material on the inside. And you know what? And I can also take it to work with me because they always have that AC running even when it's freezing cold outside. And then you go on and on with yourself with all the reasons of why it makes so much sense to buy this jacket. And then there's the final close. And that's when you close yourself by validating the price. And that's why everywhere you go, you see all these sales and all these price cuts. And that's because retailers understand the buying process, but we don't. So we have to be consciously aware of what's going on and how we're being manipulated. So my advice is don't go broke saving money. So now we understand the buying process and why we spend so much money. Now we want to focus on the saving aspect. So the first thing you want to do is start setting savings goals. This is probably the most overlooked area of focus for people when it comes to saving money. By setting savings goals, you're giving yourself time to save money. And that's important to be aware of because a lot of your savings goals are going to be long term. And the challenge is you'll be constantly battling against spending money, which is going to give you instant gratification. And that's where buyer's remorse comes from. That initial feel-good feeling eventually wears off. But by then you'll realize you're stuck with the item. And on top of everything else, your money's gone. So to combat all that, you're going to have to connect emotional connections to your goals. And the way you do that varies from person to person. For some people, it could be creating a savings spreadsheet that they look at every single day. Or it could be a vision board full of pictures of the goals that you're saving for. Like a new house, that dream wedding, a new car, or even a trip around the world. Just as long as it's something that excites you when you look at it. It can even be something as simple as a printed out savings thermometer that you tape on a wall and just color in as your savings starts to increase. Just as long as there's something there giving you that constant reminder of your goals. So take the time to imagine what it would be like to accomplish that goal of saving $1,000 or $10,000 or even $100,000. And don't just imagine having it, actually imagine how it feels to have it and how that could completely change certain financial situations that you're going through right now. So because saving money may be a new habit you're trying to create, you're going to need to constantly revisit those goals. Because that's the only way you'll remind yourself of why you're making these sacrifices. Because saving money will cause you to sacrifice some things. So just know that two of our most motivating factors in life are love and fear. So these goals will help you associate the feeling of love with accomplishing them. But I also want you to feel the fear of not saving and not reaching those financial goals. Because the truth is, there are repercussions for not saving money, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. I really want you to understand that if nothing changes, then nothing changes. And that if you aim at nothing, you will hit nothing. So it's so important to have goals you're aiming for. Next, you're going to have to know your real monthly expenses. And this is always a fun exercise because naturally we always underestimate how much money we spend on a monthly basis. So you're going to start off by writing down everything you spend money on monthly. Then write down everything you spend money on quarterly, semi-annually, and annually. These will be your real numbers. Because sometimes if we're not paying for something on a monthly basis, we forget to count it as a monthly expense. But it actually is, because you're trying to get a true account for all your monthly expenses. So once you've done that, you want to convert those annual expenses into a monthly amount. For example, let's say you pay your car insurance annually and it's $2,400 for the year. You want to take that $2,400 and divide it by 12 because there's 12 months in the year. And what you'll end up with is $200 a month. So you must save that $200 a month in an account that you know is specifically for your car insurance. And don't allow that to be commingled with your normal savings. Now, when that car insurance comes due at the end of the year, you're 100% prepared and you'll never feel defeated. And when it comes to saving money, the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a position of feeling discouraged or defeated. Because otherwise, this will also impact how you spend money throughout the year. Because realistically, when you go out with friends or families and you know in the back of your mind, your bank account says $1,500, there's a good chance you'll make different financial decisions during your outing versus what you would if you knew your bank account said $250 instead. So when you don't account for those annual expenses on a monthly basis, it gives us a false sense of having a lot more money than we actually do. And as a consequence of that, it causes us to spend more money than we actually would if we knew our true financial situation. So once you've accounted for all your expenses and you have converted it over to a monthly basis, you want to divide them into two separate categories. Category number one will be your fixed expenses. These are your predictable expenses because they don't change from month to month. These are things like your rent, your mortgage, or even your car payment. And you know for a fact you have to account for these expenses every single month. The second category are your flexible expenses. These are your expenses that may adjust from month to month. These are things like your grocery bill or maybe your utilities. Now, these flexible bills are where you want to focus. I want you to look back a few months, see how those bills fluctuate, but also notice what is the range they stay within. And based on that range, I want you to create a budget for the most you allow yourself to spend for each expense. Then just focus on spending less than that number every single month. And if you do happen to spend more than your budget for the month, then you'll have to make up for it the following month. Then just constantly revisit those numbers to get that budget as low as possible. Next, you're going to need to know your real income. And knowing your income is just as important as knowing your expenses, because that's going to be the only way you can determine how much positive cash flow you have every single month, or how much positive cash flow you should have every single month. Because what you have and what you should have are not always the same number. So typically you'll get paid once a month, twice a month, every 2 weeks, or once a week. So now let's break down what each one of those examples actually looks like. So if you get paid once a month, that's pretty straightforward. Whatever you bring home is actually what you make for that month. And I'm basing everything off your net income, which is your income after taxes are deducted. Now, if you get paid twice a month, you're going to take that number and multiply it times 2 to get your full monthly income. So those are the easy ones. Now, if you get paid every 2 weeks, that's where it gets a little tricky. Because a lot of times people think getting paid every 2 weeks is the same as getting paid twice a month, but it's actually different. So because you get paid every 2 weeks, there will be 2 months out of the year where you will receive 3 paychecks. So to run an accurate calculation, you're going to take one of your paychecks and multiply it times 26, because you actually get 26 paychecks throughout the year, not 24. So this will give you your true annual income. Then once you get that annual income, you're going to divide that by 12 because of the 12 months throughout the year. And now you have an accurate account for what you make on a monthly basis. And as you can see, it does slightly differ from someone who gets paid twice a month. And finally, for the weekly income, it's going to be the same process. You're not going to take that number and multiply it times 4 because that's going to give you an inaccurate monthly income. So what you want to do is take that weekly paycheck amount and multiply it times 52. And then take that annual number and divide it by 12. So as you can see, the way you get paid and how often you get paid does matter. And if you get bonuses, you want to calculate that for the year also and then divide that by 12. Because it's really important not to look at bonus income as extra income, because all that does is cause you to spend it as if it's extra income. The main goal is to get an accurate account for all the money that you make, simply to make the process of saving money easier. So now you should have a pretty accurate monthly income calculation, which will help you determine how much cash flow should be left over after you pay all your monthly expenses. And this entire process is the foundation of you being able to save money. Next, you want to start paying off your debt. And it's important not to look at paying down your debt as moving backwards or even spinning your wheels. The truth is, debt has a direct effect on you being able to save money. Look at it like this. Imagine your savings goal being a finish line. And naturally, with any race, you start from the starting line. But when you have debt, you're really not starting from the starting line. You're starting from way behind the starting line. So that means you're going to have to run a longer race. But make sure you don't let that discourage you. And just because you're running a longer race doesn't mean you can't complete the race. So it's important you don't let debt discourage you from saving. So what you have to do is count that debt being paid down as you're taking steps towards reaching your savings goal. And when I refer to paying down debt, I'm mainly referring to paying down bad debt. And those are things like credit cards that usually hold really high interest rates. And debts like your mortgage are typically considered good debt because it's attached to an appreciating asset, which means the debt is actually helping you make money. And I'm not saying you have to put 100% of your cash flow towards paying down your debt, because I believe you can both pay down debt aggressively and save money at the same time. I also recommend you going online and finding some form of debt calculator. What that's going to do is allow you to play around with various payment numbers, and it'll calculate exactly how long it will take for you to pay off your debt completely. Because it's a lot easier to pay towards debt when you can see there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Next, I want you to use a method called Pay Yourself First. Paying yourself first is a method that allows you to start treating your savings with the same respect that you treat your bills. And that's simply having a set dollar amount automatically drafted into account specifically for your savings. I would highly recommend opening up a second account separate from the one that receives your normal paycheck. This process will remove all the physical labor involved in saving money. It also helps you utilize the theory of out of sight, out of mind to work for your advantage. Because once these deposits start to happen regularly, it becomes second nature for you. And believe it or not, you may actually forget about that second account. But if you still feel like you don't trust yourself enough to not spend the money anyways, there are certain things you can do to make it a little more difficult to get access to the money. Like opening up an account at a bank or credit union that doesn't have a lot of branches, and don't give yourself a debit card. This will cause you to have to drive to the location, stand in line and wait in order to get access to your money. You may consider that extreme, or you may see that as a viable solution. But either way, you will eventually have to start trusting yourself. Paying yourself first also helps because there will be months where your budget doesn't go as planned. But with this method, you'll always know in the back of your mind that you did save money somewhere. And it doesn't have to be a large amount to start off with, because the main thing to work on is formulating new habits. Besides, you'll always be able to increase your contributions over time. Next is reduce eating out. And that not only includes eating out, but also drinking out. Specifically referring to juice bars and coffee shops. Because for some people, these places can be just as expensive as eating out would be. And of course, if you eliminated eating out completely, you'll be able to save a lot more money. But I'm just going to classify that as being unrealistic. And the last thing I want to do is set you up for failure. So we're just going to say reduce eating out. A simple strategy you can implement right away is just give yourself specific days you allow yourself to eat out. This may be once a week or maybe a few times a week. And on the other days, you'll have to have a prepared lunch. And again, this is for people who still have a desire to want to eat out. And who knows, during this process, you may realize that you like home-cooked meals a lot more than you like eating out. But if you are going to make your own food, just know it comes down to preparation. You cannot try to do things last minute, because we all know doing things last minute typically doesn't work well. And you can also apply the same strategy if you're a coffee shop person. Some days you'll allow yourself to go, some days you'll have to make it at home. But if you are a coffee shop person, here's another way you can start saving money. Get the drink and skip the snack. I'm sure you know that food and snacks that are sold in the coffee shop are dramatically overpriced. So instead, decide what your favorite snacks are, then just go to the grocery store and buy it in bulk. Then you can leave a few in your car, you can leave some at your desk at work, or anywhere else you can store them for access when you want them. And then you want to do the reverse process when it comes to eating out. Buy the food and skip the drink. You can buy your drinks in bulk, preferably water. And when you order your food, you can bypass ordering that expensive drink as well. And these are just a few examples. You can be as creative as you want with it. Just understand that changing the way you spend money while eating out can have a massive impact on how much cash flow you have at the end of the month. Next, we want to budget for fun. If you don't include fun into your budget, you will more than likely grow to despise saving money as a whole. And remember, we want to stay away from anything that discourages us from saving, because naturally we associate budgeting with pain and restrictions. So we have to change our perspective when it comes to our approach towards budgeting and saving money. However, at the same time, we still must maintain guidelines. So first off, how much you spend on fun cannot be more than how much you spend on your savings. That's rule number one. Now remember, our savings goals must be the priority. So you'll have to decide what you believe is a responsible amount of money to put towards fun every single month. And during the early phases, I would not recommend using a credit card or a debit card while you go out. Mainly because it's easy to get wrapped up in the emotional feel-good while you're out having fun, and then swipe your card and it go way beyond your budget. But when you have cash, you'll be very clear on what your limits are. And maybe as a sacrifice, you can't go out every week anymore. You may have to limit it to every other week or maybe once every 3 weeks. It all depends on how much money you think is required for that specific occasion. Another part of the fun category that gets overlooked are vacations. And vacations can get quite expensive depending on where you're going. So your vacations should also be planned out and saved for. Meaning you don't go on vacation until you've met that savings goal. And that vacation goal is separate from the paying yourself first goal. Because the goal is to save money while you're still able to do some of the things you love doing. So now when you go on vacation, there's no guilt because you know you didn't deplete your savings or go into credit card debt just to go on that trip. So the overall key is just to make sure you're not spending more money than you actually make. And then from there, start paying down your debt and saving some money for yourself. And just know you'll always be faced with challenges when you're saving money, especially in the early phases. But remember to be continually focused on your goals. And over time, the process of saving money will become second nature for you. You may actually get to the point one day where you're more excited about saving money than you are about spending money. So those are all the tips I have for you guys today. And I hope some of these tools will help you throughout your savings journey. Don't forget to follow for more financial content, and I will see you in this video next.